Imagine you just handed over $30,000 for a used Toyota HiLux. It looks perfect. Clean interior, shiny paint, smooth test drive. The seller was friendly, the price seemed fair, and you drove home feeling like you got the deal of a lifetime. Then, 3 weeks later, your mechanic calls you and says the words nobody wants to hear. This truck has been in a major flood. The frame is corroded from the inside. The transmission is on its last legs. And the odometer? Yeah, that's been wound back by at least 80,000 kilometers. Just like that, your dream truck becomes your biggest financial nightmare. This is happening to real buyers all across Australia every single day. And today on Tech Guy, we are going to expose exactly what used HiLux sellers are hiding, how they hide it, and most importantly, how you can protect yourself before you sign anything or hand over a single dollar. Welcome back to Tech Guy. If you are new here, this channel is all about giving you the kind of real, honest information that actually saves you money and keeps you from making costly mistakes. We do not sugarcoat things here. We tell you exactly what you need to know. So if that sounds like something you want in your life, go ahead and hit that like button right now and subscribe to the channel so you never miss a video like this one. It genuinely helps us keep making content like this, and it takes you literally 2 seconds. All right, let us get into it. The Toyota HiLux is arguably the most popular used vehicle in Australia. It is tough, reliable, and holds its value incredibly well. Tradies love it, farmers swear by it, families use it as their weekend adventure machine. Because it is so in demand, the secondhand market for HiLux trucks is absolutely enormous. We are talking tens of thousands of listings at any given time across car sales, Facebook Marketplace, Gumtree, and private dealerships. And where there is high demand and big money changing hands, there will always be people looking to take advantage of unsuspecting buyers. The HiLux is one of the most commonly misrepresented vehicles on the Australian used car market, and the trick sellers use have become increasingly sophisticated over the years. Let us start with the number one thing that sellers hide, and it is something that catches buyers completely off guard. Odometer fraud is still happening at alarming rates in Australia, despite it being illegal. This is where the seller, or someone before them in the ownership chain, physically rolls back the kilometer reading on the dashboard to make the truck appear to have done far less distance than it actually has. A HiLux that has genuinely done 150,000 kilometers might be listed as having done just 60,000. That difference is enormous when it comes to the actual value of the vehicle and how much life it has left in it. The really scary part is that modern odometer tampering is done digitally using cheap diagnostic tools that can be bought online for very little money. It takes someone with basic technical knowledge less than an hour to alter the reading. And on the surface, you would never know just by looking at the dash. How do you protect yourself here? You check the service history obsessively. You look at the timestamps on the logbook. You use services like PPSR to run a vehicle history check. You look at the physical wear on the seats, the steering wheel, the pedals. A truck with genuinely low kilometers should not have a driver's seat that looks like it has been sat in for a decade. And if the seller gets nervous or evasive when you ask about service records, that is your red flag right there. The second thing sellers hide is flood damage. And this is one of the most dangerous because it is the hardest to detect and the most expensive to fix. Australia experiences severe flooding events regularly, particularly in Queensland, New South Wales, and Victoria. After major flood events, thousands of vehicles get written off by insurance companies. Some of those vehicles are properly disposed of, but a significant number of them find their way back onto the market after being cleaned up, dried out, and cosmetically restored just enough to fool an untrained eye. A flood-damaged HiLux might look and even smell fine for the first few weeks, but the water that got into the electrical systems, the ECU, the wiring harnesses, and deep into the frame and body cavities does not just disappear. It causes corrosion that slowly eats the vehicle from the inside out. Electrical faults start appearing randomly. Rust develops in places that are almost impossible to repair properly. The cost to fix a properly flood-damaged truck can easily exceed the value of the vehicle itself. To spot flood damage, look under the seats and in the spare wheel well for watermarks or dried mud. Check the seatbelt buckles for rust or debris. Smell the interior carefully, especially on a warm day. Check behind the dashboard panels if possible. Look at the electrical connectors under the hood for signs of corrosion. And always get the vehicle inspected by an independent mechanic before you commit to anything. Here at Tech Guy, we cannot stress this enough. An independent pre-purchase inspection is one of the best investments you will ever make when buying a used vehicle. It typically costs between $150 to $300, and it can save you tens of thousands. Never let a seller talk you out of getting one. If they do, walk away immediately. Now let us talk about something that might surprise you, and that is hidden structural damage from accidents. The Toyota HiLux is a workhorse, and working vehicles get into accidents. That is just a reality. But what sellers often do is get the truck repaired just enough to pass a casual visual inspection, without disclosing the accident history to the buyer. We are not talking about minor bumper scrapes here. We are talking about significant impacts that have bent chassis rails, compromised the cab structure, or affected the towing capacity and safety of the vehicle. A truck that has had structural damage repaired incorrectly is genuinely dangerous. It will not perform as intended in a subsequent accident, and it may have alignment issues that cause uneven tire wear, handling problems, and long-term drivetrain stress. The way you check for this is by running a PPSR check, which will show if the vehicle has ever been written off or had a significant insurance claim. You also look for uneven panel gaps, mismatched paint colors between panels, and overspray on rubber seals and trim pieces. A UV light in a dark environment can sometimes reveal old paintwork. Again, a professional inspector will catch things that the average buyer simply does not have the eye for. Let us move on to something that is more subtle but equally costly, and that is hidden mechanical wear that is disguised right before the sale. This is incredibly common, and it is legal, which makes it even more frustrating. A seller who knows their HiLux has a tired engine, a slipping clutch, or a transmission that is about to fail will do a few things to hide it before listing the car. They will use thick oil additives that reduce engine noise temporarily. They will clean the engine bay spotlessly to hide oil leaks. They will adjust the idle and service the air filter just enough to make the engine sound healthy during a test drive. They might even replace cheap, easy-to-access parts like belts and filters to make the service history look more current. The signs you need to watch for are blue or white smoke from the exhaust on a cold start, which can indicate worn piston rings or head gasket issues. Check for oil residue around the engine block and underneath the vehicle. Insist on driving the truck at highway speeds, not just around the block. Test the four-wheel drive system properly if it is a 4x4. Listen for clunking from the drive shaft when accelerating and decelerating. A scanner plugged into the OBD port can pull any stored fault codes from the ECU that the seller has not cleared, and that alone can tell you a huge amount about the hidden health of the engine. Another major area where sellers hide problems is the electrical system. The newer generation HiLux trucks, particularly from 2015 onwards, have significantly more complex electronics than older models. Touchscreen infotainment systems, lane departure warnings, trailer assist features, multiple driving mode controllers. When these systems develop faults, they can be expensive to diagnose and even more expensive to repair. A common trick is to disconnect a faulty sensor or module temporarily so that the warning light does not appear on the dash during the test drive. Or they might clear the fault codes with a scanner the morning of the inspection. The problem is that those codes will come back once the vehicle is driven for a bit. This is why you should always ask specifically when the last time the warning lights came on was. You should also run a full OBD scan yourself, or have a mechanic do it at the start of the inspection before anything has been cleared. We also need to talk about something that affects lifted and modified HiLux trucks specifically, because these are extremely popular in Australia, and they come with a unique set of hidden problems. A modified HiLux with a lift kit, bigger tires, and aftermarket accessories looks absolutely amazing and can command a higher sale price. But modifications done incorrectly or using cheap parts can cause serious issues. Suspension geometry that is out of spec leads to uneven tire wear and handling problems. Modified vehicles may have had their compliance altered, which can affect insurance coverage and roadworthiness. Sellers will often not disclose that the modifications voided any remaining manufacturer warranty, or that the parts used were cheap offshore imitations rather than quality Australian compliant components. Always ask for receipts for any modification work. Find out who did it and whether it was done by a licensed workshop. Check if the modifications have been engineered and whether there is an engineer's certificate, which may be legally required depending on your state. Something that does not get talked about nearly enough is the issue of outstanding finance on used vehicles. In Australia, a significant percentage of used cars for sale still have money owing on them from the previous owner. If you buy a vehicle that has outstanding finance, the finance company has a legal claim over that vehicle and can repossess it from you even though you paid for it in good faith. This is completely legal in Australia, and it does happen. The fix for this is simple. Always run a PPSR check before buying any used vehicle. The PPSR, which stands for Personal Property Securities Register, will tell you if there is money owing, if the vehicle has been reported stolen, if it has been written off, and a range of other critical information. It costs around $2 to run, and it is the most important $2 you will spend in the entire buying process. Now, let us also touch on the issue of private sellers versus dealerships, because the level of protection you have as a buyer is very different depending on where you buy from. When you buy from a licensed dealership in Australia, you have consumer law protections, including statutory warranties in most states that cover you if the vehicle has a major fault that was not disclosed. Private sales are generally sold as is, which means if something goes wrong the day after you drive it home, you often have very little recourse. This does not mean private sales are bad. Some of the best deals in Australia come from private sellers. But it does mean that your due diligence needs to be even more thorough when buying privately. Get everything checked, get everything documented, and never let the excitement of finding what looks like a good deal rush you into skipping the important steps. One last thing that Tech Guy wants you to know about before you buy a used HiLux is the importance of checking the vehicle in the right conditions. Always inspect it in daylight, never at night or in a dimly lit garage. Always have it driven cold, meaning the engine has not been warmed up before you arrive. A seller who insists the car is already warmed up might be hiding a cold start issue. Bring a trusted mechanic, or at least someone who knows cars. Take your time and do not let anyone rush you. A legitimate seller with a good vehicle will not mind you taking an hour or two to go over everything carefully. Buying a used Toyota HiLux can absolutely be a great decision. These trucks are genuinely incredible machines when they are looked after properly. But the used car market in Australia has real risks, and the HiLux is one of the most targeted vehicles for fraud and misrepresentation precisely because it is so desirable and commands such strong prices. Your best defense is information, patience, and a willingness to walk away if something does not feel right. Trust your gut. If a deal feels too good to be true, it almost certainly is. That is everything for today's video. We covered a lot of ground here and genuinely hope this saves you from making a very expensive mistake. If you found this video helpful, please drop a comment below and let us know whether you have personally experienced any of these issues with a used vehicle purchase in Australia. Your story might just help someone else avoid the same situation. And if you know someone who is looking at buying a used HiLux right now, do them a massive favor and share this video with them. It could literally save them tens of thousands of dollars. Do not forget to like this video and subscribe to Tech Guy if you have not already, because we have got more content coming that will help you make smarter decisions with your money and your vehicles. We will see you in the next one.